The story of City Impact Church is one that is full of many stories, but perhaps there's none quite like the story behind the construction of City Impact Church's 2,000-seater auditorium on the north shore of Auckland, New Zealand, a building built almost entirely by the church members themselves. It all started in 2002 when senior pastors Peter and Bev Mortlock realised that the existing auditorium was no longer big enough to support the growth of the church.
The preliminary stuff began obviously with Pastor Peter and Bev's vision to have a new home for the people, because we wanted many, many more to come here and get saved. So we had a concept plan of what that might be, a 5,000-seater auditorium. When we went to council to present all that, they turned us down and said no, it needed to be scaled down. And we're very, very fortunate. We had Sid Jones obviously come in after that and help also with the actual getting everything done, ready for the project to start.
Well, the planning stage was working with Pastor Bev and Peter over what they were aspiring to do. And that was a key aspect, really, in getting the model working well to which to build from. The challenge for us was that really that in building this building, there was really no money in the kitty to start it.
And I can recall taking steps without having the provision, but knowing what God had called us to do. And I remember the time we walked out, Bev and I, after we'd taken and offering up in wheelbarrows for the building, walked down, put the taiha in the ground. And it was a significant moment. You could feel it in the air, you could feel it in the atmosphere.
As soon as they did that, I kind of knew in my spirit that it was like it was done. It was like somehow it's going to happen, and somehow God has done it. And all we had to do was step in and agree with it and do our little bit, really.
And of course, it was the following year that we took up the largest offering ever in New Zealand, $6.5 million. And without that, we would not be here today.
And that's what I just so love about Pastor Peter and Bev. They have a vision, and then when the timing's right, they say go, even before we had all the funds for it. So we began down that track without all the money to complete the building, believing God that He would enable us to make it happen.
The idea of using voluntary labour, if we could use that as one of our resources, that would be an important part of in achieving the feasibility for the project. My father, he built a clock tower with voluntary labour in Gore. It was a sort of a legacy that he is leaving to the district, and I could see that this really was a similar opportunity. There have been some bad instances of voluntary work being done on buildings that comes unstuck and it hasn't gone that well.
When Sid came and said, look, we can do this ourselves, my immediate reaction was no. He said, no, it's not going to happen. Let's employ somebody, let's pay for it, you know, I mean. But he was persistent. He came back, in fact, 3 times. He came back and said, we can do it. And I just could sense his faith and his heart and his passion. And so I said, okay. I remember going home to Bev and saying, we can do this, but it's going to cost me every Saturday, because there's only one way I know how to lead, and that is by example. I cannot ask people to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. They won't let me lay blocks over there. I want to go and lay blocks, but they realised I was an apprentice bricklayer once, and I lasted 6 months because I couldn't put up a straight wall. So they won't let me lay blocks, so they got me tying steel.
Having Pastor Peter at the front with the vision and so confident of it coming about, it was kind of easy. It was just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other, and you knew that it was going to happen.
When Pastor Peter announced it, most of us were sort of quite blown away that he was laying down such a big challenge. And for me, I remember, personally, we were sitting in the auditorium, and I remember just going, this is awesome. I just remember thinking to myself, I have to be involved in this.
I remember everybody being really excited, but I've seen a lot of people get excited before and not deliver a lot. So I guess I was a little sceptical in the sense that, yeah, everybody's excited at the meeting, but there's a lot of building to happen. So, you know, who's going to really show up?
When they presented the concept of us doing this building voluntarily, I thought that it was a little crazy. I couldn't see in my own mind's eye how you could get a volunteer workforce to pull off such a project.
Well, we had a massive amount of unskilled labour, but what we did have, we had a passion to build and a willingness to learn.
We started small, obviously. The first time we started was just chopping down trees and clearing the site.
Check this out, the vision's huge. Things are really hotting up around here. The site has begun to take shape, noisy and dusty, and there's heavy machinery at work. And even better than that, our City Impact Church people have begun to devote themselves to the vision.
We're making 2 churches that we need lots of room for the people.
People were excited. We had a dream that we could do this, and the synergy that came together with everybody being so enthusiastic and passionate and committed just to put in the hard yards.
A big part of the job was the earthworks, and Peter Reid, who was a surveyor, was able to control the cut and fill for the car park layouts.
Well, we had what was quite a difficult site to deal with. Parts were very wet, it was all quite steep, and so early on we commissioned a contractor with up to 6 trucks and 3 big diggers, and they got in there and did the cut to fill of earthworks on the site. I should just mention that we did about 20 to 30,000 cubic metres. That's a big job for such a small site. And then later on, of course, we had our own people doing pole retaining walls, and there's probably over 1 kilometre of retaining walls built on the site, which is a fantastic effort.
We were digging out the holes, we were putting the steel together for the foundations, and then we were laying the concrete.
We've got to make sure it's been done right, because this is what the building sits on.
To start with, we had to have the concrete pad down below. So the surveyor gave us the levels and the 4 corners where we were working. And then I set up all the string lines, where all the columns are underneath. I set that all out and getting ready for this level of floor in here and on upwards.
The plan really was expect a lot of people on the Saturday, recover on the Monday morning, and even if you had to undo what was not well executed on the Saturday, recover the situation on the Monday, start regrouping and re-strategizing then for the following weekend.
And I remember, like, the Saturdays were amazing, because my job was to get all the materials on site and make sure everyone was going to have something done, but then we all had to be flexible because we weren't quite sure how many people were going to come to do it.
There weren't really that many experts, that many tradesmen that really knew what was going on. But we were just willing to have a go.
Sid came up with a really good plan to be able to manage the unskilled labour that we had. What he did was he created team leaders over different areas. Those team leaders were people who either had experience or were qualified. And then underneath each of them, they had to build a team of people as well that they were responsible for.
Skilled labour could work quickly and even leave a mess behind them, knowing that unskilled labour could clean it up. And while that may appear menial to a lot of people, those that were doing it were having fun and mixing up, meeting up with people. So they created their own entertainment.
There was a few times when people wanted to help me lay blocks, and so they said, what can we do? And I said, can you get these blocks and can you stack them from here and stack them over there? And so when they finished, they felt really happy. And then another lot of people came along, so you got them to get the blocks and stack them from there over to there. So, people felt happy, so, that's the main thing.
This is my first time down here. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Hi, this is my first time on the building site, and it's been absolutely amazing.
This week we also want to pour the foundations for the top level of the ground floor, and we'll have the first pads and that in place by the end of today.
We're here building the house of God, and we're needing all the help we can get.
I remember we dug in the clay, we tied all that steel by hand, and all the way through while we were doing it, we were thinking of people whose lives would be radically touched here because the Spirit of God was going to be here. That which we were doing in the natural, of course, was digging foundations for the spiritual and for a long time to come.
And right through from bending up steel and pouring concrete to putting the roof on, putting the ceiling up, every step of the way it was fun, it was a sense of adventure, and just being involved in a project that you knew was so much more than just building a physical building, that you were building a home.
The fondest memories I had on site was watching people get involved in construction and work that they had never done before. and just seeing what they could accomplish and even the pride that they had on their face.
We're just getting some steel bent to make some a water tank which goes down the side of the building here. Part of the council regulations is this water tank.
This is a very complicated piece of thing we're doing here because if we don't get this right, people are going to get stuck in the lift.
I'm pinching their mud. They're going to be pretty upset by this, but that's all right. It's every man for himself on this building site.
Good fun, good food. Love being it here. Very good food. That's what I come for.
I was hearing the young people, they said the only reason I'm coming is for the food.
So the food was better than anything at home. Don't tell Mum. But it was another grabbing point for coming.
I think that was the big draw card for a lot of people, getting fed at the same time.
I'm sure most of us actually put a few kilos on because the lunches were just outstanding.
Pies, Chelsea buns, saucy rolls, there were chicken wings, and sometimes there was whole chickens. Sometimes somebody would turn up with great big curries. There was roast lamb. There was all sorts of stuff that would turn up on occasion. We should do it again sometime because it was awesome.
I pretty much managed the site during the week, coordinating subcontractors and some of the full-time builders that were on site, and then managed more the specialist team on a Saturday. And as the project went on, I was blown away at just what the masses of people can achieve.
You know, I cannot believe the amount of rubbish that's being generated on the site, but it means that things are happening. In actual fact,
watching Pastor Dad week after week picking up the rubbish, and he was one of the first on site and one of the last to leave every single week. And then what we were able to accomplish behind his leadership showed me that it doesn't really matter what you do as a leader, it's that you're there.
Well, another beautiful day. I'm on rubbish clean-up again today. Amazing the incredible amount of rubbish that's generated around this wonderful building site.
Often, key leaders will set the vision, set the plan, encourage people, but not always be on site themselves. Whereas Pastor Peter hated missing it. He was always on site. And people love seeing somebody in his position down here with them working. It made a huge difference. I think that made a huge difference to a lot of people.
I was upstairs in the pantry, in the kitchen, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, you know, and as I walked out of the pantry, he was walking into the kitchen and he had his big black sack still picking up rubbish at 10 o'clock at night, you know, on the building site. It was like, wow, this is huge, you know, and that was the heart of it for me.
At one stage, I was walking up on the catwalk, and I was going to fetch some paint or do something up there. Well, here was Pastor Peter up there, and he was leaning over the rail, and he was looking down at the auditorium here. And when I looked at what he was looking at, I could see it, because there were just tears flowing down from him. And I looked at what he was looking at, and it was like there was this little ants. It was like a little ant house. There were just heaps of people just everywhere, just running to and fro. And I could see his tears were just like tears of gratitude, that everyone was just volunteering and just keen to do it and just working really hard.
If Pastor Peter didn't have people in his heart, this building wouldn't even exist. And having known him over the 30 years, I can categorically say his heart has never changed. He cares about the individual and he wants to see their lives saved and restored and matured. And that's what this house is about. It always has been. It's never been any different.
The pavement for the car park was an important question that we had to answer, and because we had the choice of using asphalt or concrete. My view is concrete's cheap, relatively speaking, so I put Tim in charge of that work, and it was a milestone in the project. It worked out well for us. He ended up pouring concrete every Saturday and Wednesday for 18 months.
I think the way it worked out, somebody said, oh, we need somebody to head up the concrete team outside, and I mentioned that, 15 years ago I'd worked for a guy who laid concrete. I didn't tell him that my job was to pick up the tools and sweep the mess away, but anyway, I'd seen people lay concrete, so that was my qualifications.
Well, another awesome day on the building site today. The odd passing shower hasn't stopped the concrete workers from pouring concrete down below. They're doing such an awesome job.
Hey, y'all, we're just putting down a concrete pad. Me and my brother, Billy Bob.
It's for the concrete. Yeah.
So of the 8 acres we have here, possibly about 70% is covered in car park.
You know, we were laying, you know, long strips of concrete from the start, you know, 35, 40 cubic metres of concrete. And it didn't take long, you know, it didn't take more than about 4 or 5 Saturdays before a lot of the concrete guys that were delivering the concrete were like, this is pretty awesome, you guys are pretty onto it, you know.
So of the major pours that we undertook throughout the project, not one of them was rained off. I mean, it's just Auckland weather, you expect rain over a 2-year period. And there would be clouds to our left and clouds to our right and a clear strip in between. And when the drivers would say, we're going to have bad rain today, I just say, look, we're, you know, to the left and to the right it's raining, but it's going to be clear where we are.
Okay, once we do the footings up there, then we've got one more floor slab to do, and that completes all the groundwork. Then we start going up in the air.
Well, the cladding for the building favours concrete for 2 reasons. One is that it's a great acoustic attenuation it provides and absorbs a lot of sound. I was determined really to make it on-site because it's so much more cost-effective. It would use a lot of voluntary labour and once again it would be more economic. Our largest panel was 27 tonnes, which is quite significant.
We're on site here, as you can see, we've got the first of the tilt slants going up, and to think that we actually made those things ourselves and they're actually working.
Pastor Sid asked me to head up really colouring the walls and imprinting them. When he asked me, I remember making the statement, oh, that'll be easy. And man, I was so wrong. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Guys would turn up and would pour the concrete. And then I and a few others would go out and would throw out the coloured powder, trowel it in, and then we'd take out these big imprints, big rubber mats, and put them out and pound them into the concrete. And so to imprint it, we have to do it into soft concrete. So the timing was everything.
We were posted on putting the roof on, and it was so amazingly high. We're talking like 20, 30 metres up in the air, and we're walking across big, huge, you know, steel frames, and we had to put down the ply and then the insulation.
The iron, we did all the iron ourselves, and then we did all the underneath here for the soundproofing.
Having got the ceiling in the auditorium completed, then allows you to do all the seating.
As you can see, we're still continuing with the seating. And also, just here, we're actually starting to make up the reflectors that have all the lights in them that go underneath this walkway.
Sid approached an engineer at one stage and said, look, we need your help in designing the seating because it's not sitting down, it's actually fixed into the face of the timber. And the engineer said, timber, I don't work with timber, never done it before with timber, I don't want to know about it. And so we had to design it ourselves. So this was a first.
Now, these containers, they have all the chairs for the auditorium. We're going to have a big seat-a-thon to get those screwed in.
This piece of glass behind me is the first piece of glazing to go into the entire project. Awesome.
On a Saturday, we could have 30 or 40 people painting on any day. So that was a challenge, just making sure everybody was doing a good job.
I mean, I remember being right underneath the platforms painting. I mean, nobody's going to see that, you know, but we did it, and we did it with passion, and while we were doing it, we were praying. And our heart is that this place gets filled.
I'd be spraying up above, and all the black would just cover me. So I'd have a little, just kind of a mask, and just a white patch. And yeah, and all my white overalls went black. And so fortunately, there were good teams of people. They got stuck in it and made it happen, and we did just get it finished.
As long as you're happy. She's happy.
I am more than happy with it.
The air conditioning was very important, and we got a design concept prepared by a young engineer. And Victor was a member of the church, and he was able to take the concept design and work through the practical parts of ordering it, making sure it fitted.
He was the brains behind the operation, that's for sure. And just about every seat has its own air conditioning control. So the place is absolutely unbelievably well controlled with air conditioning. So we had to put ducts into every second seat in the whole auditorium, and of course through the roofing throughout the rest of the facility.
G'day guys, we're putting in a whole lot more ducting right through the whole building to keep you guys nice and cool. We've got a crack team here, and they've got an important job to get it out of the way before the electrician guys come and do their part.
So we had a huge amount of, a huge switchboard to install, and a whole lot of distribution boards, and running a lot of large cables.
We probably would have had around about nearly $300,000 worth of cable. And that's not just the building, it's the car parks as well. There's cables all under the concrete, running out to all the lights.
See how our ducts right down the bottom here?
I think the basis of the design at church really comes back to the heart of Pastor Bev, in the sense that she wants this to be our home, so that when you come in here, you feel welcome, warm, comfortable, you feel like you belong. The excellence of it is to show people that they're valued, that God values them.
Excellence is important to us because we believe that it honours God. And excellence isn't necessarily about flashy, it's not necessarily about extravagance, it's not necessarily about spending the most that you can, or it's not even necessarily about the best. It's actually doing the best you can with what you've got. You know, things like the finishes on the doors, you know, they're upholstery buttons that you normally find on a couch. So they didn't cost us very much, but the overall effect was fabulous.
Pastor Bev and I had great fun finding those handles for the executive area upstairs, and they're just made out of picture frames, just inverted and put together. And that's really exciting, that whole process. And we achieved a fantastic result, you know, like it looks amazing.
The best thing is, like, you can walk around and you can invite people to come. And like a lot of people, when you say, oh, do you want to come to church, you know, they think of something kind of run down sort of thing, you know. And to come into a real, you know, like a real excellent church, you know, with nice chairs and nice surroundings and just really, you know, show the goodness of God, you know. It's awesome. It's really cool.
You know, I still stand amazed how, as a church, we did it. People rallied behind Sid. People got the vision. He got people into teams. And people worked so hard. And today, even today, I think, how did we do that? It was a God thing. No two ways about it.
We had hundreds of people that bought into it Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, and every single one of them carried, you know, an aspect of the build.
We had no idea that we could ever do anything like this.
Thanks for the opportunity, Peter. It's been great. We'll get it finished next week.
And the fact that, you know, God gave us the opportunity, the privilege of being involved in building this, showed us that, look at what you guys can do. If you guys come together with a common cause, common vision, and put your heart and your soul into something, look at what you guys can do.
I have a tremendous sense of ownership, tremendous sense that this is kind of home, and almost moves me to tears sometimes. Knowing what went into it, it was such a fantastic effort from so many people. To create what we have here is almost unthinkable. But as a body of people, we did it. I'm very proud of that.
And it's special to me because, not only because it's a home for me, my children, my grandchildren, and for many, many more people to come in. Like, they come in and they feel like it's home. So that's very special. But to me, it's special because it's been built on sacrifice, and it's been built on obedience for what God wants to do at that stage.
Everybody I show through the facility, I make sure that they know what went into this place, and because people come along and think, wow, this is amazing, you guys have got lots of money, and you know, and I make sure they know that we did this on a shoestring, that we poured our lives into this thing, and that people sacrificed their family time, their spare time, their energy, everything to make sure this place went up.
This place, you know, when I look at it, I think this is a place that brings faith, hope and love to people.
you know. And if I can have if someone can come to this place and find God, find some hope, find a future, I can feel, hey, I have played a little part in that, and I'm just so happy about that.
The building has a heartbeat, and it does. But the heartbeat is the heartbeat of the people. And it's like, whatever we do in God, we sow things. And people sowed their life, their time, their effort, their resources, their talents and their skills. They sowed that into that building.
That 2 years of which 500 people actively participated in that role shaped the church to do other things.
When we went onto the Mount Wellington building, I remembered what we did on the North Shore, and I thought, we've done it before. This is going to be a walk in the park. If we can build this, then we can convert the Mount Wellington building.
3 weeks to turn this amazing building around, to turn what was really, to be honest, a car park building into a sanctuary, into a place of worship. We're believing for a harvest.
I mean, the thousands, over 2,000 people saved in a new church plant in 18 months, 20 months. That's incredible. But it's been a wonderful testimony to the grace of God, to the call of God, and to the faithfulness of God's people who responded to that call.
It was a pretty awesome experience, actually, when the building was in completion and I'm standing down in the front of the sanctuary, just in awe of the whole place. And I turned to Sid, and I said to Sid, Sid, you've built me a stage that I could do anything I ever dreamed of on. And Sid turns around and says to me, oh no, I have to build you another one for that. And it kind of sums the whole thing up. Because we believe in such an amazing God, He's never runs out of creativity or ideas. He's never restricted by time, space, purpose, or people. And Sid summed it up. You know, whatever God places within our hearts to do, He gives us our heart's desire. And so, yeah, there's a bigger stage ahead. And what we have accomplished is absolutely amazing. But we're not finished yet. There's another generation to reach. There's another city to touch. There's people's lives to be changed.
You know, the cliche is the best years are ahead. And I wouldn't want to say that glibly, because we've had some wonderful years. And I am obviously so thankful for every step in the path. But I do know that the best is yet ahead. And I'm so looking for others who will co-labor with me and who are prepared to support, because I know what I can do what I can do, but I need others to do what they can do in order to bring about what God has called us to do as a church.